Welcome to Grants Rock Warehouse, and I want to welcome Peter Kerr from Rock Daydream Nation, Reed Little from the Contrarians, Todd Evans from Rush Fans, and Armando Venditti from Sea of Tranquility to the show. Today we are looking at the 1980s British band Kajagoogoo. The band had a hit single titled Too Shy that was released in January 1983. It was the first single from the debut album White Feathers, a song that was immediately a hit and reached number one on the UK singles chart for 2 weeks. So without any further ado, let's get to our panel and to Kajagoogoo. I want to welcome the panel tonight. I've got Reed Little, Todd Evans, Peter Kerr, and Armando Venditti here today. And I'm Grant Arthur, your host. And tonight, yes, this is the show of shows, kids. Who would have ever thought that this panel would ever look at the band Kajagoogoo?
Not me.
No.
Armando says no, but we're going to look at them tonight. Just to give you a bit of a history of the band, Kajagoogoo were a British new wave band best known for their 1983 hit Too Shy, which reached number one on the UK singles chart. It also hit top 10 in other countries. I don't have them listed in front of me, but they're from Bedfordshire, England. Had Nick Beggs on bass, which is a killer bass player if anybody's ever checked him out. Steve Askew on lead guitar, Stuart Coxford Neal on keyboards, and Jez Strand on drums. 1981, the band was originally called Art Nouveau, and they were pretty much playing more avant-garde type of music, believe it or not. And they put an advertisement in for a new singer. They auditioned and chose Christopher Hamill, who went by the stage name Lamal. They renamed the band Kajagoogoo, and things started from there. Somehow Lamal hooked up with Nick Rhodes of Duran Duran, and Nick was able to get them a deal with EMI. So that's where it all started. Too Shy took off. But Lamal was only with the band for a short time. His stage persona, I don't know. He was a big hit with the Teeny Bopper Girls, and that didn't go so well in the Kaja camp, and they fired him in mid-1983. Nick Beggs took over and started as the lead singer. This album we're looking at today is the first album, White Feathers. Smash Hits gave it a 2 out of 10, and AllMusic gave it a 4 out of 5. But we're just going to try to look at this album and see how it stands up today. Is it a teeny bopper album? Were these guys great players? Does this album stand up? Because this album, back in the day, just came out on vinyl. You didn't get a CD release until, I think, 2002, 2000, sometime in the early 2000s. So I don't know. Was this a band that was meant to be forgotten? We're going to take a look. So, like I said, I want to welcome the panel here tonight. Who should we start off with first? Who would like to go?
I'll go if nobody wants to go first.
I'm going to go Todd Evans, and we'll just go around. We'll go Todd,
okay.
Reed, Peter Kerr, and Armando. And then I'll follow in for the end. So Todd Evans. Todd Evans, what do you have to say about Kajagoogoo White Feathers? Of course, okay. I know you remember when it came out.
I remember when it came out. That was 1982 was the year I started. Is it 83 when this came out? Is it 83?
Came out in 83.
Okay, well, I was working at a record store then. Okay. And so I remember it well. I remember Too Shy being absolutely huge, but I never really paid any attention to this record. I don't think we had a copy of it to play it, because when I listened to it just a couple of days ago, it was really, besides Too Shy, it was really the first time I've heard it. But my first impression of it was, holy cow, this sounds really good. I mean, it's drum machine, but really well engineered. And Nick Rhodes had some help from Colin Thurston, who produced a lot of albums back then. And so, it shouldn't be any big surprise that it sounds good. The things that stand out to me on this album is the bass playing, of course, by Nick Beggs, from who's also played with Steven Wilson and a whole bunch of very progressive rock kinds of ensembles. So he's definitely got the chops, and he's a very good player, and his bass playing stands out. And I mean, the bass part in Too Shy is pretty much iconic. I mean, it's, if you really think about that part of the song, it's, you know, it's a very memorable part. And for such a young man, he was a very good player. And I like the guitar. I think the guitar is inventive. But there's so little substance. And to me, these songs are so unmemorable. Some are better than others. I think White Feathers is good. I think Too Shy is very good. Some of them are downright embarrassing. I think Magician Man is pretty embarrassing. I think This Car Is Fast. I don't know how they decided to keep calling it that, because that doesn't even sound right with the music when he says This Car Is Fast. It's like, that doesn't, why didn't you just rename that? The last song, Freyo, is musically interesting, but it doesn't go anywhere, and the lyrics don't make any sense. It's like, what's he even talking about? What he doesn't really explain it. So I think it sounds really good. I think they have a lot of potential. But I think the weakest part about it is actually Lamal. I think that instrumentally, it's kind of interesting, but I don't think that he has really a very good voice, and I don't think that he really adds that much to it. Like I said, I think Nick Beggs and the guitarist Grant. I don't know if you can tell me his name? I didn't jot it down, but
it was
Steve SQ.
Yeah, I mean, it's nothing groundbreaking, but it fits the music, and I think that the ensemble sounds good. The arrangements are pretty good. It just doesn't seem like any of the songs go anywhere, and I think it's pretty unmemorable. The album that they did after that, which is called Islands, was the first one, I guess, that Nick Beggs sang on. I think is better. I think the songs are a little better. I think it holds together a little better. But do you want us to rate this?
Yeah, because we're going to do I'm going to compile all the ratings. Let's do it out of 10, and then we'll see what we give it as a group.
I'll give it a 6.5. Okay. I think it gets some points for being a really good recording and showing some potential.
Let me ask you this real quick. If you look at it at the time with everything else that's coming out, do you feel that it fit right in? Do you think it's...
Yeah, I do.
I mean...
I think it fit just fine.
If you would have listened to it back in the day, Todd, and you would have thought, "Wow, those guys are good players." I mean, I don't know.
I mean, a lot of it's some of it's programmed. It's drum machine, so a couple of the guys are good players,
right?
But I feel like even back then, I would have been disappointed in the melodic content and would have felt like it doesn't really. The songs don't really go anywhere, and I'm surprised there's no ballad. There's no ballad on it, which I thought was strange because I think Lamal probably could have pretty effectively sang one. So,
well, if you think he could have, because if you've never heard his work, Never Ending Story, he sounds great.
Yeah. So that surprises me.
Yeah. So you gave it a what? 6.5?
6.5. Yeah.
6.5. All right. Cool. Excellent. Thanks for your review. That was awesome.
Sure.
Reed Little, I'm going to send it over to you.
Okay. So, kids, the story of Kajagoogoo is a cautionary tale about watching other people's YouTube videos and making smart-ass comments about Kajagoogoo. So I do remember when Too Shy was all over MTV. That was when I was deep in the throes of my MTV addiction. And that stupid video was on basically every hour on the hour for a couple of months. And if you haven't seen that video, it is well worth watching just to look at the performers and think, yes, kids, in 1983, this apparently was sexy in Britain. Synth pop is way outside of my comfort zone. I was not listening to that music at the time. I was not listening to that music at the start of the 21st century. I wasn't even listening to that music 2 weeks ago. I was listening to that music 2 days ago to prepare for this chat.
And this is why we have you on here, Reed. I can hardly wait.
So Virgin Ears, I have to agree with a lot of what Todd said. There are some interesting musical things in this music. It's played well. The bass lines are great. The instrumentation is very post-punk. It's very bass heavy. The guitar playing is very John McGeoch influenced, very arpeggiated, something that would later flow over into Johnny Marr of the Smiths. Actually, the Smiths were already going in 83, right? Not really a Smiths fan. But
I think so.
That type of music was very popular, very influential in England. But I think there were other bands doing much more interesting things with it. The song Too Shy is very catchy. And they have another song. I have it pulled up here on the old Wikipedia page. Was it Hang On Now, which was another single, which has a great arpeggiated guitar part to it. And that's a very interesting song. But all of the other songs are like a song to me. To paraphrase Douglas Adams, and anybody watching a chat about Kajagoogoo should know who Douglas Adams was. But to paraphrase Douglas Adams, listening to White Feathers is like bashing your brains out with the 80s wrapped around a Fairlight synthesizer. It is so of the time. And Too Shy is a hell of a catchy song. I thought it was catchy then. It was the kind of, now growing up in a small town in Montana, you would not admit in the presence of other young men that you liked the song Too Shy. That was just asking for a butt whipping. But yes, it was toxic masculinity. That's just the way you grow up in Montana. But it was catchy. You know, even not having heard that song for 40 years nearly, I could still sing most of it. But the rest of the album, man, I've already forgotten what it sounds like. I mean, it's so one-dimensional. Whereas some other bands like the Pet Shop Boys or Naked Eyes, anyone remember Naked Eyes? They had a couple of great hits back in the day. So there's a lot, even for somebody who's as uninvolved in this scene as I am, I feel like there are a lot better examples of this style of music. And the other thing that I thought listening to this was, if they had lost the dude from Duran Duran and gotten Trevor Horn to produce this, this would have been like the #1 album of 1983. Trevor Horn could have done magic.
I think you might be right.
Trevor would have to bring some tunes.
And different musicians.
You'd have to bring a lot of tunes.
Yeah, that's what Trevor Horn did, though.
It'd be the Trevor Horn band.
I'd have cut about 3 of those out and replace them with something else. Yeah.
100 remixes.
I'll make it.
Oh, and just one other thing. Watching the video, I suddenly went, son of a gun, you know, George Lynch from Dokken had that exact same hairstyle in 1988. So
as Lamal. Yeah.
Lamal was 5 years ahead of his time.
Yeah.
You're right. That's funny. How do you think it? I don't know, Reed. Are you familiar with any of Duran Duran at all?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, come on. Duran Duran might as well have owned stock in MTV for as much as they got played. But greatest hits, strictly greatest hits. I mean, I even watched their stupid movie. Was it Sing Blue Silver or something like that?
Yeah, that's not stupid. That's a great documentary. Come on,
stupid, believe me.
Hey, I'll get the finger out for that.
I haven't seen it since '84 or whatever.
That's a great documentary.
Well, I mean, I find there's a lot of similarities between Kajagoogoo and Duran Duran. You know, for one, you've had the whole Nick Rhodes connection. You've got the same producer that Duran Duran used in that era. But you would think with that, Duran Duran, I think, had better songs for one. You know, if you look at that first album, I can't think of a weak track on it, or on
Well,
Rio. We know Rio's a perfect record.
Well,
you know?
Duran Duran also played like a band.
Yeah.
So that's kind of they kind of had an advantage there.
Yeah, they got the chops.
Yeah,
definitely.
But Nick Beggs definitely is a better player than John Taylor. I will by a long shot.
I agree with you, but I think that's saying a lot because I think John Taylor's a good player.
Yeah,
right.
But yeah, I do agree.
But I don't know what I was going with that. Well, I know, but you would just think. I guess my point is, being that there's so many similarities between Duran Duran and the producer, you think the producer could have went in and I don't know anything about how long it took him to record this or the background to it. I don't know. Maybe they just rushed this out to get this single out for all I know.
I think with that material, the producer did all he could.
Yeah.
Oh, my rating. I'm giving it 5. 5 out of 10.
That's very kind.
That is kind. Well, I think that's fair. That's okay. Yeah, well, there you go.
Something.
Peter, let's go over to Peter Kerr and get his. I bet Peter. I don't know. I expect a higher rating out of Peter Kerr, and I don't know why, but we'll see. Maybe. Let's see what he has to say.
Take it away, Peter.
Take it away,
thank
Peter.
You. Thank you. Well, the sort of consciousness impact in Australia was quite minimal. Too Shy was a little bit of a hit, and then there was nothing. And then Lamal had a major hit with The Never Ending Story. So that's probably the start and finish with Australia with Kajagoogoo, Too Shy, and the Never Ending Story. But funny little story about how Kajagoogoo got Nick Rhodes in the fold. So originally, as Grant said, they were a band called Art Nouveau. And Lamal, or should I call Chris Hamill, that's his real name, was a waiter at a trendy bar or club in the UK called the Embassy Bar. And he saw Nick Rhodes and his entourage, and he dropped a little cassette and started talking with him. And I don't know, they were yapping away. And out of that connection, Nick Rhodes dropped the cassette off at EMI. And the EMI guy said, yeah, we had that cassette mailed to us about a month ago. So Nick said, well, step to it. And they gave him a recording career. So it was out of that interaction, out of the Embassy Bar where Lamal was a waiter, that they kickstarted their recording career. And the irony of it, and Nick references this in an interview, they got a #1 hit before Duran Duran did in the UK. So it was just one of those perfect synergy sliding door type of stories. Too Shy's catchy. The bass line is just probably the star of the show, but I think the album is strictly 2nd division or 3rd division. I think if you're looking back at the synth pop and the pop world of the 80s, I think they're a bit of a mere blip. And I don't know if you guys have explored the later catalogue. Nick Beggs being the lead singer, very, very different type of band. And they're going in really strange dynamics. They're going into a little bit of ska, bit of reggae, definitely exploring a different sort of musical universe where this one is a bit straighty 180, very square synth pop. And I think, you know, there were different sort of commercial sort of fluctuations. With Lamal, they were huge. Without Lamal, they went down the slippery slope. And it's all because Lamal was a smash hits pinup guy. So he was like the Ronnie James Dio was synth pop. And, you know, if you see him, he's only like 5'2", 5'3". He's a little thimble and Santa's little helper. But, yeah, he was like a superstar of the smash hits world. And the whole band was built around him. And I get a feel that there was a little bit of jealousy or a little bit of, yeah, sort of interpersonal politics why he got fired. You guys ever seen that show on VH1 when it was about called Bands Reunited?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Did you see this one?
Peter, I watched it today.
It's good. And it's really funny that when 3 of the band members live in a street of each other in the same town in England. So when the guy was doing, he does all these door stops to, interview them and say, would you like to get back the band back together for this special performance? 3 of the members of the band were in a location within like 100 meters of each other.
Where can I find him? Over there.
He's over there.
It's kind of like the Beatles in Help, where they all lived on the same street. Or in the same
bizarre.
house.
I was gonna say, didn't they live in like one multi-farcical apartment? But did they know that they all lived within 100 yards of each other? Oh, okay. Because that would have been funny if they were like, "What? He lives right over there."
Of course, Lamar was the holdout at the end, and they did some sort of a performance, and that nothing happened. But they did reunite, and I watched a couple of their performances in one of those 80s, greatest hits package shows, and live they sound okay. I guess they've had a couple of decades to work on it, but Too Shy is kind of okay. Todd, I'll have a little bit of umbrage. I think Lamar's got a better voice, and probably in my opinion, it's okay. Sweet. It's sweet.
It's all right.
But I don't think he's one of the great singers. He's not like a George Michaels, or if you're looking at that sort of top range sort of first division singer in synth pop. But he's okay. But I think he's a pretty face. He's the smash hits guy. And that is the difference between why this album was a hit and the subsequent ones weren't. So I agree. I think the material's a little bit thin. There are other follow-up singles. Uda BR, that was another hit for them in the UK, but that's a little bit of a throwaway. And Hang On Now, that is the second best song on the album if you have to choose. It's really interesting with the film clips. There's a lot of references to they're all dressed up in their new romantic garb, but there's a lot of interaction with characters that look like they're out of a 40s movie. So that one where Too Shy, it's like you've got this new romantic band on stage, but they're in this this music hall, and it's like straight out of the 40s. It's really quite unusual, and there's a bit of a theme through a lot of their videos. Anyway, enough of my yapping. I'm going to give this album a big 3 out of 10.
Holy mackerel. All right. Well, I was wrong about you, Peter Kerr. I might be giving this a better rating than anybody. It's
compressing your brain.
It is.
Well, I think we lost Peter.
Oh, Peter will be back. Well, anyway.
Did you see Colston's? Did you see Colston's rating?
Yeah, he gave it a 2 or 3. I'm taking his 3. So I'm going to put his tally in ours. So if anybody wants to give a rating,
he's a contrarian. Why not?
Exactly. We're all on the same.
I like this. At this moment, I feel like I should say that I'm not Kajagoogoo. But I do like having.
But you do have the logo.
It's like a lower third. Yeah, I like that a lot.
But you're rocking the beard there, Todd. You're rocking the beard.
He looks rugged as
well. Thank you.
Armando, let's
cabin in the woods.
Oh, there's Peter Kerr. Wait a minute, he's back.
He could have been Kajagoogoo, but he's too shy.
So Peter Kerr, you give that a 3, correct?
Yeah, 3 out of 10. Yeah, it's strictly second division.
Have you heard of any other? I know Todd has heard some of the later material. Have you heard any of that?
Not really. But one thing I do want to add, and Todd said, look at Begg's musicology. His CV is very impressive. He's in Steve Wilson's touring band. He's recorded with Steve Hackett. He's a bass player of extraordinary.
High regard.
He's the guy that they go to. So
he showed a picture on his Facebook or Twitter, I forget, of him as like a 15-year-old, like in his bedroom in his mom's house, and he got like a bass for his birthday or something, and so he started young and turned into quite a good bass player.
Yeah. Interesting story. There's a little bit of a sort of duality about his career, like pin-up pop boy, and then prog rock.
Mhm.
Very interesting.
Yeah, fascinating. I need to actually pick up some more of his, catalog. I've got the first Kajagoogoo album, and I've got the third one on CD. The one that they just went, they were just Kaja.
Yeah.
Those are. I'm kind of like with Todd on that. I kind of
Wait,
like those. I like
They
those.
dropped the
records better.
Goo Goo?
They did.
Yeah, they dropped the Goo Goo.
Yeah,
But I
think the
kind of
nut-
like those albums better.
Yeah, me too.
All right, let's pop it over to Armando, who got back from his cruise. Got food poisoning, but he's feeling better, and he's looking good. Armando,
Thank
how
you.
are you? Glad you could come tonight.
Thank you for inviting me at the last minute.
It's fun. It's always nice to have you. What are your thoughts on this record?
The truth?
We're all about the truth
Of
on Dance
course.
Rock Warehouse. See, it's all real.
It's all natural, eh? Okay.
Will a hair care?
To be honest with you, I've listened to the album a few times. Too Shy in Canada was a hit. It was the only hit off the album. It was released on EMI America in North America, EMI in UK and the rest of the world. I got to tell you, I kind of look at this band as a Duran Duran clone, or an
I can
attempt
see that.
to be a Duran Duran clone. The notoriety when the album did come out was the fact that it was produced by Nick Rhodes. That was the only anchor to it in terms of its notoriety. Listening to the album, Too Shy is an obvious hit. The bass guitar work on it, the slapping of the bass lines and stuff, that's the anchor of that track.
Yep.
And it's a foundation for that track. The rest of the album, there's 10 tracks. White Feathers, the title track, it's okay. Lies and Promises is all right. Magician Man, forget about it. Forgettable. Kajagoogoo, the instrumental, is okay without them calling out their letters. They call letters for the name of the band.
If they hadn't, Armando, if they hadn't done that, you could have probably saved that track.
Take that section out, you would have had a listenable piece of music. What else? Okay. Ooh, to be no. That's it. I am sorry. I cannot do it. I have faked things before in the past. I can't fake liking this track. I'm sorry. The next song, Hang On Now, has some redeeming qualities. It does have a hook to it. I don't even believe it was released as a single in North America. I'm not sure. This car is fast. Well, drive on past me. Let's go. I'm done. I can't deal with it. I'm sorry. Ergonomics, if that's the way you. No. I just there's really nothing there. Frail. That's it. The album.
That's all you could make it through.
I listened to the whole thing.
Okay.
There was like 3 songs out of 10 for me that have redeeming qualities to them. Again, Too Shy, Lies and Promises. 4 songs. Too Shy, Lies and Promises. The instrumental title track of Kajagoogoo, and Hang On Now. The rest are subpar 80s synth pop schlock. I don't know what they were trying to do. I do believe that I do believe that the media and the record company in North America tried to use the fact that Nick Rhodes produced the album as a selling point to get people interested. Because at this point, Duran Duran were white hot in North America and all over the world. This was around the time they were working on Seven and the Ragged Tiger. So they were trying to get that interest from the teeny boppers. Well, it didn't work. I'm sorry. It's the rest of the music is generic. It's unmemorable. The bass playing on this album is great.
Yes.
That is the anchor throughout the entire album.
Ernesto.
You know what? I am being gentle. Believe me, I could go a lot worse.
I love that, Ernesto. Keep them coming.
But
it's not hot space, you know. Jeez.
Yeah, it's not hot space, Armando. Come on, man.
Hot space is better than this. Sorry.
Well, I don't know about that.
Oh, Grant, that's controversial.
Oh, Grant, come on.
Come on.
No.
I'm not sure.
I'm sorry. I mean, again, that's my feeling. And to give it a rating, 2.5 out of 10.
2.5 out of 10? Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, 2.5.
Hey, that's what we're here. That's what we're.
Good
Hey,
stuff.
I threw this out to the panel. Who
Who
knows?
You have to remember, they came out at a time where there was a bunch of 80s new romantic, new wave bands coming out. You had ABC, you had Duran Duran, you had Culture Club, you had all these bands that were vying for attention. And this album and the music just missed the mark. There's nothing there.
They weren't in the same league as those bands.
Not
Spend Up
at
LA
all.
too. Yeah.
So many pirate shirts. Pirate shirts everywhere.
Like there's nothing here. I'm sorry. Aside from the tracks that I pointed out, but
gents, I tell you what, getting a #1 hit in the UK, it went to #5 in the US. That's not shabby. If only they just picked it up and the rest of the material was at that Too Shy level. It could have been anything.
Yeah, you know what's interesting to me is that I remember that time, and that was the time when record companies got it in their head that they could release 4, 5, 6, 7 singles from a record, and all of those other bands tried to do that. But this band in the United States, I don't remember that second single ever coming out. It may have.
It didn't do anything.
There certainly wasn't a third or a fourth or a fifth. So I don't think EMI thought there were any more in there.
I mean, Todd, for me, just to reiterate the point, there aren't, aside from the tracks I mentioned, those 4 tracks, there isn't a track on here, the remaining 6, that have that hook, that memorable melody to it. There's nothing that will click in your memory bank for these songs. So, I mean, I don't know what else to say.
And most of them sound really good. They're just missing the more important pieces.
There is something that is missing.
Yeah.
You know, that element. There's an element that's missing.
It almost sounds like they could be demos, to be quite honest, even though the sound quality is good.
Really, really slick demos.
I like where they're going with the tracks, but it's almost like they're not totally
they don't get
flushed out.
They're not fully flushed out.
Yeah, Trevor Horn, I could tell you what, if he got it, he would have just put the wall of sound, the strings.
He would have earned his paycheck too, because it would have been hard work.
You know what they say about polishing? You know what?
You
can't polish it. You know what?
You know what he would have said? Take these back, craft them, fix them up, and then bring them back to me. If not, I'm off the project. I'm sorry. Like, you know.
Well, so we're going with a 2.5, Armando, right? Correct? Just to make sure.
Yes.
Okay.
My apologies.
This record, back in the day, I thought, and thank you, by the way. That was a fair review. I'm glad you're keeping it real. But I want to just say, as far as this record goes, I had never heard this album until we came up with this topic. And I always thought that Too Shy was a classic. I think it's still a classic. I don't ever get tired of that single. Every time I hear it on the radio or hear it like on Sirius XM or whatever, I love it. If we could have had more of that, you could have done something. But I think it sounds like a bunch of demos. I think the album's okay if you like have a party and you just want to play something in the background. Because I think the playing, I think they sound good as a band. I think the playing's fine. I don't think it's a bad record, but I don't think it's a great record. And like, you know, Todd said, he likes the album that came after, and I like the Kaja record even better. But based on that one song, holy mackerel, I'm not saying that's worth the price of admission, but I think White Feathers is a great track. I think that Too Shy is a great track. What did I write? Got a problem when I'm on a laptop, kids. I can't see my notes.
And he's got to stay in character too.
And I have to stay in character.
That hair must be heavy there.
But I'm going to be kind of like Armando here. Kajagoogoo instrumental could have been great. I wish they wouldn't have had that.
The call out.
The calling out
letters.
God, that just about killed it for me.
Oh.
But Lies and Promises is fine. I don't mind that song. Magician Man, that's okay, I guess. The side one's a lot better than side two, you know. I mean, I don't know. I just wish that I could have seen what they would have done if they hadn't kicked him out of the band. You know, I'd like to have seen if they would have progressed. Because think about these guys, you can hear like if Too Shy, there could be, I hear like this jazz type of underlayment to some degree, you know. It sounds kind of advanced if you think about it. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what happened to the rest of the album. But I've been listening to it for, I don't know, 3 weeks or something. And it's okay. It kind of grows on you after a while. I'm just going to go out on a limb. I don't think it's totally terrible. I like Too Shy. I think that's one of the best songs of the 80s. I'm just going to give the record, well, I guess a 6.
Ooh.
So I had the highest rating. Wow.
6.
You're a kind man, Mr. Evans. You're a kind man.
Apparently so.
Maybe a 6.5.
Here's a question for you, Grant.
Yeah.
White Feathers or Rio?
Oh, Rio.
Yeah.
Rio is brilliant.
I'm seeing a lot of comparisons with Duran Duran, and I got to say, you listen to that first Duran Duran album, it had energy, and it kind of rocks compared to this.
Yeah. I don't see the comparison. I just think it's the Nick Rhodes connection. You think he could have thrown them a couple of bones, couldn't you?
Yes, and the interesting
even a couple
thing
of
is,
B-sides or something. He could have.
I
just
would like to
thrown
have a
them
conversation.
Well, the CD has a lot of bonus tracks.
It does. But I'd like to have a conversation with Colin Thurston and ask him.
Right.
Because he might be able to say, hey, you know, there weren't any songs. We just had to do what we could with what we had. I'm sorry, Armando. Go ahead.
No. I apologize, Tom.
No worries.
I just think that maybe Nick Rhodes probably saw this opportunity with Kajagoogoo for them to be the next Visage with Steve Strange.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that.
Is way better than this.
I mean, yeah, Visage is way better.
No. I mean, but just the way the production is, and sort of like the lyrics really aren't that memorable. But I'm thinking in terms of the production, in terms of the music and the image.
It's a bit bubblegum. It's a bit bubblegum, I reckon.
I'm saying it's a step below Visage and a step below Duran Duran.
I think I see what you're saying, though, because Visage kind of came out. I mean, Midge was you know, part of that, and so he sort of, maybe Nick Rhodes thought he could do kind of the same thing, you know, like maybe, I discovered this band, and They have a
Well, I don't think I've
charismatic
seen it on his
frontman.
CV. I haven't seen it on Nick's CV. So
No,
maybe
no, you don't see it. You're
he's
correct.
liquid papered it out.
Right.
No, I think he distanced himself after this album. I'm just putting it out there. I'm just putting it out there. And
It's an interesting case study, guys, isn't it? Like, you have a one-hit wonder, and then what are these guys' lives? I mean, we know a lot about Beggs, what he's done, but the other guys, did they just go back to being a financial accountant,
I don't know.
working in accounts, or doing whatever they did?
Well, in that VH1 program, they don't even talk about that. What are you doing now?
No,
You know?
that was a missed opportunity to see, hey, what have you been doing for the last
They did that with
20
other
years?
bands too, so that's interesting. Because I think back to the Flock of Seagulls one, and they talk about the guitarist, working at a music school and teaching lessons and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that they didn't do it with Kajagoogoo. Maybe they tried, and they just couldn't fit it in. Or...
I mean, Lamal had
up on the cutting room floor.
Maybe it just didn't work. Yeah,
I mean, Lamal had somewhat of a successful. I don't know how much success he really had, but Never Ending Story was a wonderful song.
Yeah,
I think he's done a bit of acting. I think he's been an acting.
Yeah, he did do some acting.
And he's been on one of those reality shows that you may not have got over in the States called I'm in the Outback, Please Get Me Out of Here. One of those ones where you put all these celebrities.
Get me out of here.
Yeah. Do they have that over there? Or
no, but unfortunately, one of my favorites, Tony Hadley from Spandau Ballet, has done that show, and I really wish he hadn't. But yeah.
Yeah. Colson, that first Duran Duran album is a 10.
Yeah.
But it's top shelf synth pop.
But when I think about all the other bands that were around at this time, I mean, I think about like a Flock of Seagulls, better songs. I mean, I think of Spandau Ballet, better songs. Naked Eyes.
I love the
good
Naked
songcraft and really good production from Tony Mansfield from New Music.
Yeah,
I mean, lots of all of the other bands are better.
I'll put a shout out for one of my favorites, Scritti Politti. I don't know if you guys have heard of him, but
good example. Much
Cupid
better.
and Psyche is a masterpiece. I love that album.
Yeah. Yep. Depeche Mode. I mean, there were a bunch of bands, the New Romantic or synth pop era around that time that came out, that their music was just leagues above what is on this album, and you got to wonder what the hell happened.
I think Colston has a good point.
That's a really good point.
Nick
I was going to say
Rhodes'
that.
involvement rushed their development. Maybe they needed more time to find their sound direction. I agree with that, because this was all pretty rushed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Did they do the traps? Did they play the pubs, the gigs? Did they have any sort of sea legs when it comes into playing live, or were they just put into the studio?
That's a great question.
And that Behind the Music show, Lamal said that they were together a year prior to this happening with Nick Rhodes, and they'd been writing that whole prior year. But I don't remember. Todd, did you hear anything? I don't ever hear that they were ever playing any gigs or anything.
No, I can't think of anything. But they wouldn't have done it in the States anyway. So
right. They made a tape. Nick Rhodes got a hold of it. He liked it.
Yep. I reckon I know why the band sacked Lamal, or there was tension, because I remember in that era, it wasn't the band that was put on smash hits. It was Lamal.
It was Lamal.
Now, so can you imagine if you're Beggs and the band, and they're seeing the singer on the covers of all these magazines and not them? There's got to be some tension.
And then Never Ending Story comes out, and it basically is marketed the same with his face.
Yeah.
So
he looks like that. I watched that music video today.
I do,
and it's
believe
it's like they transplanted him from the Kajagoogoo video into the. But I love that song, though. I have to say, Never Ending Story.
I even like the first Wham album. I've got a soft spot for it. When they did the Wham rap, did that ever be a hit in America? The early Wham albums?
Just not to the extent that the second one was, but it was. It got some attention. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I just remember that one video that they did on that first album.
Which one? Wham?
I don't know. I just remember them they're in a house, or they're, I don't know what they're doing, running down an alley. I don't know.
Are you talking about Wham?
Yeah, we are.
It was weird. It didn't do anything for me. I've never heard that record, to be quite honest. That first one, or the second one. But the second album was pretty much one big hit single, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. Were there like 4 or 5 hits on that record?
But that's another thing, though. All these guys, I mean, George Michael, Boy George, they were good singers. Yeah. I mean, really good.
Oh, I love Boy.
Yeah.
I think he's got
Culture Club stuff is top notch.
I tell you what, I think Boy George has got a nice voice, but George Michael, wow, he could sing the telephone book.
Michael was
magnificent.
1 in a million.
His range was just out of. He's like the Freddie Mercury of pop.
The thing is with George Michael, people don't know that George Michael was a musician. He played keyboards, piano, he played bass. So he had a lot to do with the arrangements of his songs, the production, the engineering. He knew his way around a recording studio. And his voice was top notch.
Magnificent. Seriously. I'm not a huge Michael Wham fan, but I have to tip the hat. He's
you know. Yeah. Culture Club, they peaked with Color by Numbers.
Yeah, that's a 5-star record, boy.
That album, I mean, it's not a hit all the way through, but when you have songs like Cormac Chameleon and Church of the Poison Mind, Miss Me Blind, and Victims, which is my personal favorite. Even that song makes me cry when I listen to Victims. I'm 52. I still bawl when I listen to it.
It's a good song.
Because it's so personal.
They probably jumped the shark with that war song.
There isn't, again, going back to the Kajagoogoo, nothing. There's nothing there that would compare to either Culture Club or Wham at their zenith. There's nothing here for that. So, and just to close it, I do believe that because of Nick Rhodes' involvement with Kajagoogoo, I think they were rushed into production. You know what I mean? As a group, I don't think they were ready yet, and I don't think the songs were ready to be released yet.
I agree. So. Well, our average between all of us, we are giving this a 4.5, boys. 4.5.
Ooh. Sorry to bring down the numbers.
Well, that's all right. I don't think that's but I think we did an honest review of it. I mean, Too Shy, I'm just giving it a 6. I end up giving it a 6.5, but you know, it's based on Too Shy, which is just a perfect track, you know. And the rest of the record's not bad. The more you listen to it, the more it, you know. White Feathers is a classic, I think. I don't know, it's fine. There were just way better bands. Duran Duran was better. A lot of those, you know, and I think they just rushed the production, you know. They needed to develop it more. Yeah. And, you know, they canned them all. We'll never know what would have happened, you know. So, it is what it is. It's a product of its time.
I've never seen the album in the wild. It's very hard to get. Have you guys seen it?
No, and I think if I found one for like $5, I'd probably buy it. But
I would too.
Well,
I've never seen it.
No, me neither.
You know, back in the day in the 90s when they were, you know, the mass exodus, everybody's getting rid of their vinyl. You could buy White Feathers all day for $1. But I haven't seen it lately.
No, I haven't seen it then. I remember it then. And I think in the States on EMI America, I think Too Shy is first. I think they flipped the order. I think Too Shy is on the first track and White Feather is
because my CD, well, even my CD though that I bought the EMI reissued, it's got the British lineup.
Mm-hmm. I got a question for you. What if you took this album And you're right. You're right, Todd. The Too Shy was the first single, first track on the album for the U.S. release. But what if you took this album and resequenced it? What if you had Too Shy, White Feathers, Lies and Promises, and then Hang On Now, and Kajagoogoo, the instrumental, as side one? Like
that would make a really bad side two.
But how many albums are sold top heavy?
Well, that's true.
Well, that was the era of top heavy albums in the 80s.
That's true.
Yeah.
How many albums were sold front loaded? So I mean, I think that if you resequenced it and put those songs back to back, you'd get more sales.
But I think the original album, not the CD that we have and what I have on Acme Music, but the original vinyl record and the cassette, I think it's 31 or 32 minutes. So it's just barely long enough anyway.
Yeah.
I'll throw a curveball. Imagine if they put the Never Ending Story in it. How would that make it a stronger album if you sequence it?
Sure,
even though that was written a couple of years later.
It could only help.
It goes through the roof.
My due is getting a 10 out of 10, boys.
Since we're talking about Grant's hair, we talked about David Coverdale, but I also am getting a John Lodge vibe.
It's very John Lodge.
Bonnie
It's supposed to be a mullet, but
Bonnie Tyler, very good.
Tyler, that's it.
It needs the strobe lights, and then turn around.
Oh my God,
the wind blowing.
I'm expecting to see Grant standing in a church tower window.
I might just wear it all the time
in the
now.
courtyard, and with the wind blowing in his hair.
I know, but I may just wear this all the time.
I'm scoring the hair 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10.
Me too. It looks like the people that are watching have also given it the same.
I would give it a 9.5.
It's not bad. I mean, it's easy to maintain. I know that.
Oh my goodness.
It's the new you.
B. Arthur. All right, Ernesto. Yes. B. Arthur.
Grant B. Arthur.
I'm actually shocked that we've spent 51 minutes and 59 seconds talking about Kajagoogoo. This is just
that's my
melting.
Fault,
this is melting the YouTube.
Yeah,
moment.
I am so sorry.
Well,
that's my fault.
We're gonna break the internet.
No, we're good. We can wrap this dog up. I don't think we have much more to say. I think the general consensus is. Oh, wait a minute. What, Stephen Schnee? Grant's hair makes him look like Father or Crispin.
Now I know I've seen you somewhere before, Grant Arthur.
I'll have to look up Bruce. Well, anyway, kids, we gave it a 4.5.
That's an honest rating.
Feel free in the comments to leave your rating. I just think this was a blip on the. In the 80s, even though Too Shy is a great track, there was way more bands and artists that had stronger material. So, that was part of the thing. I want to see was this overlooked? Was this worth anything? Did it change music at all? And I think it's just a blip based on our review, Thanks, Colston. Oh,
I wonder how many Kajagoogoo records are going to be under the Christmas tree.
Not under mine.
How many mullet wigs are going to be under the Christmas tree?
Mullets are back in Australia. It's the big fashion, Grant. Everyone's wearing mullets. The young kids.
Really?
Mullets are back.
All right. Well, let's wind this one up. I want to thank the panel tonight, Armando, Todd, Reed, and Peter Kerr. And thanks for everyone making comments and watching. Please subscribe. Please leave a comment. Please, I never say ring that bell, but I'm just going to say that because I'm wearing a wig.